Welcome to the GSTV, the home of community impact stories where we grow, we inspire, and we make impact one step at a time. I just wanted to come here just to have a quick conversation about my experience at the Women in Film and Television Summit in Ireland, right? So it was quite good because when I went there, I was naive and thought and hopeful. And I'm not, it hasn't changed, but I feel like I was hoping to get something different because let's face it, this is the best time in the history to be a storyteller. And in some ways, that's true, right? But I didn't expect the type of conversation that we have when we were there. It's quite heavy conversation, and it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't angry, it wasn't bitter. It was just honest conversation, the kind of honesty that leaves you coming out of there wondering. So I kept thinking about how the mode of the creativity has evolved over the past 10 years and the past decades, where we have more access to online for long form of storytelling as opposed to the TV and the cinema that was limited. And we can now create a career in the cafe, room, bedroom, you name it. And you can actually have your story featured without having a pilot to make art through social media data. And also without having to go to a festival to pitch your story, a reel can transform your life. So when I was sitting there in that room and looking at those women who have been in industry for the past few decades, it's amazing that the surface have changed, but the structure underneath hasn't changed much. Right? One woman talked about motherhood. One woman talked about how she doesn't get roles anymore when she became a mother. When someone else came back, she talked about the change into the sense of behavioral underlying. Is she reliable because she has a change in her personal life? Can we trust her to do the hours? Can we trust her to perform? And as if your creativity runs away when you become a mother. And then there was also the issue about the COVID funding, where creativity has been limited because the risk side of things disappear because there was no more money available to take risks and to be more creative in your craft. It was also a moment where people reflected on other areas. So there was a discussion about the language and people from different culture and different language trying to reach the more global audience, how somehow in some part of the world it expect them to stand down their culture and their accent to look more, to appear more a certain way. There was one universal form of communication into the art. So there was that talk about that. There's talk about inclusion and diversity, and there was talk about the change in the women's body, and then the tone of conversation changed, and the room was silent for a moment when someone brought the subject of menopause. How menopause, with all the attributes that comes from menopause, affects and makes you alone and isolated in a world dominated by men in that industry where you cannot openly express your situation about everything that happened to you when you have a menopause. There were some women who talked about not looking and body changing, not looking the youthful self anymore, and also expected to look more presentable and acceptable to the camera. So you have this tension and constant pressure of looking visually acceptable. And they talk about diversity, they talk about representation, they talk about other form of inclusion was minor compared to the having to fit the production chart and with your body change, your energy shift, and then your level of confidence be tested because you're older. So I left feeling a bit discouraged, but I was also thoughtful because what struck me more is that those women were not bitter, but they were more resilient and they were more ready to continue fighting to create a space where they can be more creative, they can mentor, it can be mentored, and they can create a system where they can still talk about and they can still exercise their craft. All right. So that was really brilliant, right? So, but anyone can sustain a career in that environment is one of the questions that I ask myself anyway, in spite of this positive and resilient mindset they have. So when people ask me whether the storytelling can be truly democratized, I think after that, remembering the pause, the nodding, the quiet recognition of the issues at hand, right? I felt maybe the real work is not about creating a platform, but for me, I felt the real work would be working on building an industry that don't require women to shrink themselves to survive, that doesn't punish women more, that don't silence biology, and then the language shouldn't be stand down because you have a different accent and everything. Having a career break shouldn't be a moral failing. And that's the way I felt. I didn't get all my answers when I went there. Or maybe that's what this platform is about, to notice things, to listen, to say the quiet file out loud. If you work in the creative, I would like to know what changed. And I would like to talk about the various issue that you feel that needs to be addressed. This is what we are here for. Now, starting the conversation, I want you to stay tuned as I interview two amazing women who bring out the amazing gap. One is a younger version and one has been in the industry for 45 years. Stay tuned as we talk about how they're navigating those gaps. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for more conversation about life, inspiration, growth, and impact. Thank you.